Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Three Down Nation Picks podcast. I'm JC Abbott. John Hodge is not with us this week, so we've got a very special pinch hitter from the East Coast, Andrew McInnis, a recent addition to the Three Down Nation team. Andrew, introduce yourself to the people.
JC, great to be here with you. Great to finally do some work with you, and big shoes to fill with John Hodge being a little pinch hitter for him. But yeah, been following and betting the CFL for well over 10 years, and just a huge fan of it. Always trying to promote and grow the sport, grow the game. And I'll tell you what, this CFL this season has been so entertaining. I hope people are getting behind it because I'm sure having a lot of fun watching.
Absolutely. I've been getting a lot of love for my picks this year, Andrew. Some people are starting to call me just cash, but you actually do this professionally. This is your area of expertise. I'm just a layman, so you should listen to this man as we get into these picks.
JC, you deserve credit. Like if you didn't get enough credit last week, you deserve it to hear it right now. Some great picks last week. You were a bit bold. And when I decided to join the team and join the column picks, betting straight up and against the spread, it seems easy. But when you go out there and put yourself out there like you did with a bold winner in the first game of last week, you cashed a ticket. So hats off to you.
Well, there was a bold loser as well, but we'll touch on that maybe a little bit later in the show. Let's get into the games. The Toronto Argonauts will finally return home to BMO Field on Thursday after enduring 7 consecutive road games due to the FIFA World Cup. A strong crowd is expected to welcome the Boatmen back, but they remain 1.5-point underdogs to the Calgary Stampeders. Cameron Judge and Dakota Shepley are back in the lineup for the Argos after a bye last week. Meanwhile, the Stamps have no new injuries to report after spending the week in Southern Ontario and will roll with the exact same lineup they had in their victory over Hamilton. Can Calgary continue to roll, or will the home fans provide Toronto enough of a boost for the upset?
JC, how weird is that to say? First real home game, a home opener. We're talking week 10 right now in the CFL.
Bizarre.
That just sounds like a misread. It sounds like a typo here, but it is true. And as much as I don't always give the Argos the biggest home edge, there has to be something with this here. Home opener, coming off the bye week. You've got a revenge spot here against this Stampeders team. And I'll tell you, coming into the season, I liked the Stamps. I thought they'd present value. I thought we'd get them as a dog. We could bet them straight up, get them at a good pick 'em number. But I think at this moment, you can sell high on them. Last week, I told people sell high on the Elks, back the Riders. Well, maybe this is a sell high spot on the Calgary Stampeders. They still give up the second most points per game in the league, and they give up the most passing yards per game in the league. Chad Kelly doesn't get the credit he deserves. Maybe it's because of some things that have been put out there, or maybe people think that, hey, he's not the most friendly guy. You know what? Chad Kelly puts up numbers. We've got 2 games with 400 yards, several games in the 300s. I like the Argos to get the job done at home, and I also will sprinkle on Chad Kelly over 340 passing yards.
I feel exactly the same way about this game, Andrew. And we talk about Toronto as not being a tremendous home field advantage typically with the crowd, but I think Argos fans get a little bit disrespected because while they may be small in numbers, they're typically fierce in their passion. And based on some of the early returns here, it sounds like there could be over 20,000 in attendance at BMO Field because they got this sweet all-you-can-eat special going on that's drawing people in to the upper deck. So that will be a big home crowd. The Argos are coming off the bye, so they'll be well-rested, and they're getting the boost of coming home. I think it's a huge statement game opportunity for this team. And, you look at the Calgary defense, that defensive line is pretty ferocious, but there's nobody better in the CFL right now at evading pressure than Chad Kelly. The Argos give up a lot of it, but it doesn't get home very often. And the secondary in Calgary has been a little bit flawed at times. They've given up big plays, which is Chad Kelly's specialty. I think the Argos can win this game, pull the upset, and finally make the fans in Toronto happy at home.
The Saskatchewan Roughriders play host to the winless Ottawa Redblacks on Friday night in Regina, where they're 7.5-point home favorites. Ottawa have made major changes this week, firing defensive coordinator Will Fields and replacing him with special teams coordinator Jeff Reinbold. The team also said goodbye to three-time All-CFL receiver Eugene Lewis, deeming him not a fit for their organization. The Red Blacks may also be without the services of top offensive lineman Drew Desjardins, who is yet to practice this week. Though Saskatchewan is far more banged up, ratio-breaking Canadians Samuel L. Emelis, Keon Schaefer-Baker, and Tavion Campbell have yet to practice this week, while star defensive back Roland Milligan Jr. might be done for the season. Do those absences open the door for Ottawa, or is this something they can't still overcome? JC, your thoughts on this matchup?
Well, last week I was bold. I picked the Ottawa Red Blacks to get their first victory of the season, and I had to take a long look at myself in the mirror, Andrew. I'll be honest. I had a bit of a come to Jesus moment. I said, how am I out here in public picking the Ottawa Red Blacks? And then I looked in the eyes of myself in the mirror and I said, you know what? I'm going to pick them again. I'm a lunatic. I'm going with the Red Blacks in back-to-back weeks, even though they burned me. At some point, this team has to get a victory. I've always said there are two impossibilities in the Canadian Football League, going undefeated and going winless. And when you look at all the injuries that Saskatchewan has currently, and the chance for an emotional letdown after two absolute shootouts with the Edmonton Elks, with the West Division on the line, where they had to go back and forth and then even the season series, I think there's a real opportunity here for this to be a trap game. And the Ottawa Red Blacks will probably get a bit of that fired coach bump on defense. As much as Jeff Reinbold hasn't been a defensive guy in this league for a long time, the last time he was a defensive coordinator was 2012. He's an experienced coach. He's a fiery coach. And they've sent a message throughout their entire organization by firing Will Fields and cutting Gino Lewis, who, as we know, is as big a star and a veteran as you can find in this league. I think the Red Blacks respond a little bit here. I expect Saskatchewan to slip up just a little bit, and that will be enough for the Red Blacks to finally pull the upset. I've got them to win this game.
Oh, man, you are bold. I'm worrying enough about the point spread. You're calling a shot here with the outright win. Oh, man. Well, I'll tell you what, situationally, a lot of things really add up. You just talked about it. I mean, when you talk about coaches getting fired across all sports in the sports betting world, that's usually a spot to look at backing a team. In the NFL, it works. In the NHL, it works. In the NBA, it works. Why can't it work in the CFL? You get rid of a key player like Eugene Lewis saying he's not fit for the organization. You're getting rid of coaches as well. And then, as you talked about with Saskatchewan and Edmonton, having that home and home, and then you have the Ottawa Red Blacks on your schedule. I mean, I don't like to throw around these cliches too much, but the term letdown has to be applied here, JC. So I think that this is going to be one of those win but don't cover spots for Saskatchewan. And if you look at the Riders over the last few seasons, last year, a Grey Cup winning year, they do not embarrass teams. They get the job done, they clock in, they do their job, but they're not one of those teams that's going to blow somebody out. And Ottawa, if they can just finish a drive, I mean, this team put up some numbers last week. They just struggle when they get within 20 yards. JC, they're going to do enough to hang around, but I'm not as bold as you. I don't think they win it.
The two division leaders are set to square off on Saturday afternoon as the Montreal Alouettes are 4-point home favorites to the Edmonton Elks. The green and gold hit the road after a heartbreaking loss to Saskatchewan last week and could be without Canadian linebacker Joel DeBlanco. Meanwhile, the Larks soared to victory over Ottawa, but have concerns on defense as starters Jeffrey Canting-Arku, Mustafa Johnson, Najee Murray, Wesley Sutton, and Robert Kennedy III all missed practice on Tuesday, and their status for this game is currently up in the air. Will the East still get the job done, or is the West best from top to bottom?
This is going to be a fantastic ball game. I'm pumped up for it. And JC, what I find funny about this one is I spent last week writing my first article here at 3 Down, just completely dismissing this Edmonton Elks team. And now I'm here on the show with you, ready to back them and get the job done, hopefully, to cash a ticket. I thought people were getting a little bit too carried away when I saw number one in power rankings for the Edmonton Elks, when the Montreal Alouettes, to me, didn't do anything to get knocked off that. But when it ultimately comes down to it, whoever is getting points in this matchup is who I want to be backing. And when you talk about letdown, I think that if you had Edmonton being the team that won the second half of their back-to-back with the Riders, maybe I wouldn't want to be on them. But they lost the second one at home. They're going to have that motivation, that anger, and they're going to want to come into this game and I think prove they are who we all are saying they could be. And when you look at Montreal, as talked about, look, their defense overall has been good, but this is not the Montreal defense of the past. I remember there were games where the offense didn't have to do anything because we were getting pick sixes, strip sacks, and the defense was doing half the job. This is a game where I want the team getting the points. It has field goal written all over it. And I think when you go from playing Ottawa to Edmonton, those are two way different teams. So Montreal's been getting the job done. They've been cruising to victory. I think Edmonton comes here with a chip on their shoulder.
I agree with a lot of the points you just made, Andrew. And, the Edmonton Elks are going to be fired up for this football game. We know the energy and the passion that Mark Killam brings on the sideline, that Ed Hervey brings as a general manager. And I think the way they lost to Saskatchewan with some of those penalties and those preventable mistakes is really going to stick in their craw throughout this week and drive them to have a better performance. I expect this to be a very competitive matchup. A lot hinges on that Montreal defense. All those injuries early in the week. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. We don't yet know if these guys have practiced on Wednesday. We don't know what their status will be on Saturday. So if all these guys are slated to miss, I think the Elks look like a really attractive pick, especially when you've got a guy like Justin Rankin in the backfield who can exploit the absence of a linebacker like Jeffrey Canton-Arku. But I don't expect all of them will be absent from this game. I'm sure at least a couple of them will play. And I love the Montreal Alouettes offense. And there's no injuries there right now. Tyson Philpott, Tyler Sneed, Davis Alexander. I mean, they're all playing at an incredibly high level. I still have faith that at home, that offense can do enough to get the job done. But to your points, Andrew, I do think the Edmonton Elks can cover this. 4 points is way too big a spread for a matchup that is so close between these two teams. Give me the Elks to cover and the Owls to win it.
The BC Lions are 7.5-point home favorites against the Hamilton Tiger Cats on Saturday night, JC. The spread has ballooned since reigning CFL most outstanding player Nathan Rourke returned to practice on Tuesday and appeared on track to make his return from a left shoulder injury. And I'll tell you, when you say it ballooned, that number shot up big time. By contrast, the Ticats still don't know who their starting quarterback is after Trey Fuller was benched last week in favor of Harrison Frost. With no timeline for when a starter will be named, do you still have confidence taking BC to cover this cat fight?
I absolutely do. I don't care if it's Trey Ford on the field. I don't care if it's Harrison Frost. Both of those players have flashed at times, but they haven't flashed as much as the reigning MOP. Nathan Rourke is the difference in this game. I was at practice yesterday in Surrey with the Lions, and Rourke certainly doesn't look like a guy who's coming off an injury. He is throwing the ball extremely effectively. It's just a different type of feel when he's on the field. Now, Rourke has not been at his very best yet this season. We haven't necessarily seen those MOP level performances, but he is still a very elite quarterback. And as long as they can do just enough to protect him and keep that shoulder from getting further banged up, I think he's going to be just fine as a passer. The Hamilton defense has had a lot of pressure placed on them because their offense can't get it done. I think this is the time when the levee breaks, when you've got a talented offense with Keon Hatcher and Justin McInnis. And probably a greater dose of Xander Horvath in the backfield after what we saw last week. I think BC is primed for an offensive explosion in front of their home crowd. And I don't trust anything on Hamilton's offense, particularly under center right now. Give me the Lions to cover this massive spread. I'm like a fan at BMO Field right now. It's all you can eat when it comes to points. I don't care what this line is. I'm taking the Lions.
We got along so well so far, JC, and it took this long for us to be head to head. And I'll tell you, after backing the Ticats last week, I have to be a sick person to want to do it again this week because it didn't go well for me last time. Let's hope it does this time around. Look, when we talked about the intro here to bring in this game, Nathan Rourke back for one team, unnamed quarterback for the other. That should make things pretty simple. But I'm going to say this from a point spread perspective. I don't think BC's looked good with anybody behind center this season. I mean, I don't know if we're really being hard enough on BC this year, probably because Rourke has been injured. You know, there's been receivers that have been injured. There's been injuries at other positions. But I think when you look at this team, Rourke or not, I haven't been impressed with them enough this season. And that definitely doesn't make me impressed to want to lay points like this with them. Sure, Hamilton, their offense hasn't been great. One good thing to mention with Hamilton, their defense is doing all they can, JC. Like, they are doing it all until they get so fatigued they can't do it anymore. So this line at where it stands right now, I'm certainly tempted to back the dog, but I think it's going to get even higher. And if that's the case, I'm certainly going to be on the Ticats this weekend.
Well, that's a bold pick there, Andrew, but sometimes those wide spreads in the CFL, right, they can be a risky gamble. So we'll see which one of us comes out on top. Thank you for joining me in this pinch hit edition of the Three Down Picks pod. Please gamble responsibly if you are going to wager on these games, and make sure to tune back in on Monday when the full Three Down Nation trio will be back for our regular podcast. Thank you, and see you next week.